Shalom, this is Reb Yoseph Schreiber coming to you from the land of Israel. This week is Parshas Baha'altha, and in it we have the story of what is often referred to as the Lashon Hara or gossip of Miriam. And what happens is that Moshe has separated himself from his wife Zipporah based on religious considerations. And Miriam complains about that and says that she doesn't see why he has to do that, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu she was talking to Aaron, speaks to them and listens to them. So why are they any different than Moshe that he has to do this? Now, the issue of his separation, reasons are given and explanations are given. There does not seem to be a clear conclusion that is inherently logical why he has to do that. One can speculate that just as Hashem was separated from the children of Israel, so too is Moshe separated from his wife, but it remains difficult. However, that is not the thrust of the issue. What happens is HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, and he basically scolds Miriam and he says to her that Moshe is different from other prophets in that with other prophets, Hashem speaks to them in a vision or a dream, and he gives them hints. He says when it comes to Moshe, he talks to him face to face, and that he is trusted in all matters. The basic idea is that, so to speak, Moshe is a friend and trusted servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the other prophets, while they are great in and of themselves, nevertheless, you can't give them the information directly, or it will not go smoothly. That's the basic intent of it. You have to just kind of hint to them, and you gotta kind of give it to them in like a hazy, dream-like fashion. Otherwise, they won't be able to deal with it, or they won't accept it. But then he continues, he says, why weren't you afraid of Moshe, my servant? And that's the crux of the issue, or a critical issue, is that Miriam lacked fear of God. Now, the basic idea, it's expressed by Rashi, he says that the servant of a king is like the king. And just like you would fear the king, you would fear his servant. And what you have is, the idea of a king is that he has the power of life and death over a person. He can kill somebody. As well as cause them other problems. As a result, you have to be careful and respectful for a king. You don't criticize the king like he's a friend, and even when you're raising an objection, you're going to be a little bit frightened because of that. In talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there are times when he is likened to a murderer or a thug. intentionally, where you have the story of Shlomo HaMelech, where he asks for a wise and knowing heart, a lev shomeya. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very pleased with him, and he says that he could have asked for many things. He could have asked for wealth. He could have asked for a long life. He could have asked that God take the soul of his enemies, to kill his enemies. That's an aspect. Kadosh Baruch Hu can do that, and does do that. There's a story in or a parsha in Yirmiyahu where he's being persecuted, and he's able to stand on the persecution because he reckons Hashem as a Gibor Aritz. Gibor would be a mighty man, someone who's very strong and powerful. Aritz is often defined as cruel and aggressive. You also have other stories where the prophet says, can evil be done in a city and Hashem has not caused it? The idea is that basically Hashem is a powerful king, and he is can be jealous and wrathful. Okay, and what you have later on in the Chumash is that Hashem says that Moshe says that what Hashem asks for from the children of Israel is that they fear him. Now, what you have is a Yetzer Hara, an error that tends to look at religion something like a stuffed animal, a teddy bear, a doting grandfather, something that is very pleasing and pleasant and loving, but basically harmless, as opposed to a tiger, a lion, very powerful and strong. This idea of Hashem being loving has its place, especially with children, but one has to have a certain amount of fear of God. Otherwise, their aspect of religion remains childlike and naive. The idea is that if one looks into the Torah, it has rewards and punishments that can be very substantial. And the idea is that if one transgresses on a mitzvah, that God may do all sorts of horrible things to him, and you'll see it in this world, the idea of schar va'onish. But it's a case where a person has to learn the Torah and think about it deeply, and one also has to become wise in the ways of the world and apply what he has learned in Torah to the things that he sees with the eye of flesh and blood. That's the basic idea. And when one does that, they start to see that bad things happen to evil people and good things happen to good people. It doesn't always happen that way, but it happens often enough that you can say that you're better off keeping the Torah than not. That's the idea, that you have to have an educated and cultivated fear of Hashem. That if you just simply read the Torah as literature or as a book on ethics, that's a bit weaker. If going back to the story, to a certain extent, what you're talking about with Moshe is why she should have been afraid of him, or at least a bit intimidated by him. You have had leaders like this in Israel. The Kutzker Rebbe was one of them. He intimidated people by his wisdom and his righteousness. The idea is that, so to speak, Moshe is kind of like a butler in the house of a mobster, and a bit of a mobster himself, in that one has to view people who are chachamim and tzaddikim, that a person should be a bit weary of them, that their words are like fire. And one has to meditate on these things until they actually see it. That the Rambam, there are times when you'll learn the Maimonides and you'll say, well, I don't really quite see it the way he sees it. You have to be honest with yourself. But you might say, there should also be a part of you that says, I really don't like to disagree with the Rambam because he was one of the wisest men who ever lived, and over the course of time, his point of view generally is proven to be correct. So you're a bit reluctant to disagree with him because, as logical as it may seem to you at the time, further information may prove it to be the way that the Rambam saw it. That ultimately, what you have with the righteous, this is a part of the Psalms, I think it's Psalm 21, where David Melch says, Ba'azcha hamelech yismach, if I'm saying it right, in your boldness and your strength, the king rejoices. The idea is that a person should take pride that his leader is a powerful leader, and ultimately this makes a person happy that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is strong, and the values that he is relying on are strong, and just like the promises to do horrible things to the Roshaim are going to be kept, so too will the promises to do good things to the righteous, they too will be kept. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.